The reality was that I wasn't normal. To me, I wasn't normal. Well, I think at age 5 or 6, I realized that there was something very different about me. I knew I wasn't the same as my brothers. I wasn't the same as my cousin. It may have been a couple years beyond that that I actually understood that I was gay. Our cousin also lived with us, so I was one of 5 boys. Being completely different and falling somewhere in the middle of the age bracket, I found that I was alone quite often, mostly because I kind of thought I'm just so different that I'm really never going to fit in. I tried, but a lot of times my 2 elder brothers and my cousin would just kind of leave me. There were days where I would see them in the morning and I would never see them again until dinner, and we were always on the same property. I think it was, if I were bullied by my brothers, it was more a mental thing. We were never physical with each other. We were more mental with each other, and it was just boys being boys. As far as being bullied about being gay, maybe a couple of times in grade school, someone would say something to me. But never, I was fortunate that I was never threatened physically. What worried me was that I was so completely different and that I couldn't fit into the mold that my brothers did. Wanted to, tried. I never had the sense that my father liked me at all. From day one, it pretty much seemed like he knew that I was gay. And then, I believe when I was in 5th grade, I was genetically tested, which made me think not only am I gay, but there's really something very physically and or mentally wrong with me. I think, believe it or not, the first person I came out to was my father. He had made some big life changes himself. He had become a different man himself. And I told him, and he said to me, I can never hold anything against you. I've changed. I'm a different person. Why would your lifestyle be any worse than my lifestyle? When I came out to my father, when he said those kind words to me, I felt, I loved my father, but I feared him, and we didn't exactly get along as well as I would have liked growing up. But when we had that conversation and we sat down man to man, I felt I had finally broken down a wall there, and I'm sure he felt like he broke down a wall with me as well. And I think from that point, my life started to change. It doesn't make a difference to my family. They love me for who I am. I have a brother that maybe is a little not completely there, but there's still love. There's respect. I feel like I have grown into someone that isn't quite as afraid. I'm always going to be afraid. It's my nature. But I don't feel afraid about being gay anymore. Not at all. That's a blessing in itself. That's one major obstacle I have removed from my life.
Plans for the future?
I will remain gay. Plans for the future. I'm just going to keep growing. I mean, I have so much more growing. I'm fortunate that I have my health. I have a great support system around me. I've got my family, of course. I've got my friends. There's a big world out there, and there's so much for me to do. I've changed careers a couple times. I'm not afraid of change. So I think there's so many things that I can do. I just have to pick one direction and have fun with it. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes when you turn 18. You're going to make mistakes when you turn 30. You're going to continue to make mistakes. What you need to know is that you have to absorb everything that you're doing and learn from it. Don't keep repeating the cycle. Learn from it, and don't be afraid. It's bound to happen. We all make mistakes, but you're gonna get better. The world is gonna get better. Life is gonna go on. The sun will rise, and you're still gonna be a wonderful human being.
You know, when I was young, I just wanted to fit in and get by like any other kid, but I couldn't. I didn't really know why. And as I got older and hit puberty, I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know how to express it. Christine Jorgensen hit the papers, and all of a sudden, and I read it, and I said, aha, now I know. So I went down to the state library in Pennsylvania, and there was this lady there, and it was her duty to make sure that she was the guardian of all things chaste. And in those days, and to some extent now, everything is by the Dewey Decimal System. But to find something, you went to little 3x5 cards, and it would tell you if they had the book and what aisle, and she'd be saying, what are you doing? Why? What are you doing down here in this section? And I learned, you know, fairly young that you don't tell people why. I got beat up fairly regular, and then I would go home to my father, and he would say, you know, you've got to learn to fight back. That just wasn't in me. But after it happened enough, I became one of the not mean like in hatred for somebody, but I'd go looking for the bullies. So, you know, it was odd. I was like playing a part that I wasn't. But by God, I was not going to get hurt. I was, you know, tired of that. And so if anybody was going to get hurt, it wasn't going to be me. At 17, I joined the military. And a lot of us consciously or unconsciously figured it would make a man out of us, or it would cure us of this thing. And we didn't really care much one way or the other. And of course, you know, we survived, the lucky ones, and it didn't change a damn thing. My father, he was very ill, and she threatened to expose me, and it would kill him. And she was going to send a letter if I didn't, you know. Renee Richards had come out, published a book called Second Serve. She's an eye doctor that was, you know, had an operation. And so I took that book, I took it out to my parents, my mom and dad, and I said, here, this is me. And they didn't really believe it, but, you know, time went on. I worked for a Mormon company for quite a while, and I didn't dare come out. Oh, I mean, I was two different people. In the daytime, I was this electronic person, and in the evening, I was me. Especially in Orange County, south of LA. Oh, that was fun.
When did it get better for you, Sheila?
It got better when finally I made a mistake of getting married again, and I told her from the beginning. It's a long story, but I had gone out to celebrate. I put on a suit that I kept for business meetings, and I said, hey, I'm going to go out and celebrate. I'm going to go ahead and decide to become, you know, full-time. Have that little old bit of a change in Thailand. But anyway, went out to celebrate, and this place where I was going to celebrate, they were having this live music, and I heard it down the hall from the restaurant, and I went down. I said, hey, when my meal's ready, can I have it? This is a big celebration down there. Yeah. Walked down, and it's a long story, but one of my friends was dating this woman, and this lady walked in the bar, and they were talking, and come down to me. This lady walked in the bar, and she said, you want to date? I said, no, not really. I said, I don't want to be rude, but you know, I know that you're talking to my friend's girlfriend. But she said, well, do you dance? And I said, of course I dance. But she said, well, come on. I said, it's not going to do you any good. I'm transgender. I'm in the process of changing teams, so to speak. And she said, I don't care. Oh, really? Even now, I mean, there's transgender person being killed every few days. So, it's, of course, and one of the things when you're in the military is you don't lose fear, but you realize when your number's up, it's up. And so why fear? I mean, it's going to drive you nuts.
So I grew up in a very conservative religious background. So of course you're raised to feel that homosexuality is wrong and that if you're gay, you're going to hell. If you have these feelings that it's not right, it's a sin, so you need to repent, you need to go to church, and that's going to solve all your problems. And I always had the question in my head, well, if God created me, why would he create something that he doesn't love? There was always a stereotype of what a gay man was where I grew up, and I never fit that stereotype. So I didn't really identify as a gay man until I was probably in my mid-20s or so. I shouldn't even say that. It took me a while to fully realize until maybe about 30.
But you had inklings. So
I had inklings. I explored, but I didn't really understand fully what it was because I didn't identify based on the stereotypes that I was exposed to. I wouldn't say I was bullied because of my sexuality, because I never said that I was gay. I never said that I was into boys. But yeah, I mean, I always had maybe tendencies that people looked at as being gay or whatever, but I had girlfriends in school. I had ways to not necessarily cover it up, but ways to hide it. And so it wasn't necessarily being bullied for that purpose. It was being bullied for just who I was in general. It was one of those things I went with the flow. Growing up in a very religious, conservative background, the stage was you find somebody to date, you date that girl, the next step is to get married. Once you're married, you have kids, you grow up happy, you live this blissful life and everything else. But for me, it was one of those things where I never really fully accepted that lifestyle. I tried to make it work, but there was always that background where I felt drawn towards guys. I felt drawn towards something that I couldn't be satisfied with being married to a woman. Like I said, I was married for 9 years. I just had to finally wake up and realize, like, hey, you don't have to necessarily fit all these stereotypes that you thought a gay man is. You are your own person, and who you love, who you're attracted to, is not necessarily a stereotype. It's who you are. And it was tough to come out. I mean, I had a wife, I have kids, I have parents that I had to say, hey, you know what, this has all been a big misunderstanding. I really didn't know who I was. I'm confused, and while it wasn't a joke, it was one of those things where it was a total shift in my life, and I had to accept it the best way that I could. And I had to tell my parents, I had to tell my wife, and I'm glad that I did. My dad's brother is gay, and when I came out to my dad, he said to me, he paused for about a minute or two. It was dead silent, and then he just says, well, I'm not going to treat you the same way my father treated your uncle. He goes, I love you, and that explains a lot. And thinking forward into the future, if this were to happen, I don't think that in 25 years down the road, this is going to be as big of an issue as what it is now. I think that the world is evolving. I think the world is learning to accept that this is not necessarily a minority or a lifestyle choice. It's who you are. And it's just a matter of accepting that, you know what? It's a person. It is who they are. It's not about being gay. It's not about being straight. It's not about being white or black. It's about being a person. I was living two separate lives. I was living the life that everybody, I wanted them to see. You know, I was married, happy with 2 kids. I was the worship leader in my church. I was very active in the community. I was a teacher. I was doing everything that the quote-unquote normal straight guy does. But in the background, I always had this separate life where I was hooking up with guys. I was doing the gay thing, but it was always in the shadows, in the secret. And so you had these 2 separate lives, and trying to balance that was torture and stress in your head. And when I finally got rid of living 2 separate lives and accepted who I really was, now I can live the real life that I have. It gets better.
It really gets better.
And so it will get better if you stick with it and you reach out for help. Don't give up.